Welcome back to Mastering Simulink. In this lesson, we'll create our first model. To begin, open MATLAB. You'll see that I have MATLAB open already. I'm using MATLAB 2015b with Simulink 2015b, but the user interface is reasonably similar on other recent versions of MATLAB and Simulink. So if you're using another recent version, that's okay. Within MATLAB, navigate to New and then to Simulink Model to open a new Simulink model. We'll want to focus on two things with our new model: adding blocks to implement some logic and setting up the simulation configuration. First, let's add some blocks to implement some logic. For now, I'm just going to implement a simple multiplier, so let's open the Simulink library browser by clicking on the icon with 4 squares. Go to Commonly Used Blocks and select a constant block. We'll also select a multiply block. And we'll select a numeric display from the Sinks section. We can come up with a second constant block by either pulling another block from the library browser or by using the keyboard Control-C, Control-V, or by holding down the Control key while clicking and dragging the block that we want to duplicate. When the Control key is released, we have copied the block. Let's multiply, say, 7 times 10. So we'll arrange the constant blocks on the left, the multiply block in the middle, and the scope on the right. This is a good approach to follow for signal flow. Put inputs on the left of a model, logic in the middle, and outputs on the right. It makes it easier to see what is going on a large model when we follow this convention. We can connect the constant block inputs to the multiply block either by clicking on a constant block and then on the multiply block while holding down the Control key, or we can manually connect the blocks by clicking on the constant block output and dragging to the multiply block input. We'll do the same thing to connect to the numeric display output. Now we're ready to run our simulation and examine the output in the numeric display, which will tell us that the result of this multiplication is 70. Before we do that, however, I want to briefly show you the simulation configuration options. Go to the Simulation menu option and select Model Configuration Parameters. You'll notice that we have options here to select our total simulation runtime based on a start and stop time, a solver, which can be continuous or discrete, and some options relating to the step size under Additional Options. We'll look at these options in detail in an upcoming lesson. In my case, I'm going to leave the solver options as they are, since this model will run just fine with the default continuous time solver. I'll leave the runtime at the default, and we'll exit the configuration settings. You'll notice that the model also tells us in the lower right-hand corner which solver it's using. Now run the simulation by clicking on the Run button. Just as we expected, Simulink tells us that 7 times 10 is 70. Now I realize that this is a really simple model, but this is just to give you an introduction to how to use Simulink. You now know how to create a basic Simulink model and run a simulation. In future lessons, you'll learn to harness more of Simulink's power for more substantial challenges. We'll see you next time.